Okay, everybody, welcome to week number 5 of finding a better job. This week is probably one of my it's probably been one of my favorite weeks to put together. As always, these classes are evolving over time, so I'm sure there's plenty for me to improve. But I really hope you take away the spirit of what I've been able to put into this week's presentation. And it's a little bit, so it'll probably take our entire time that we have today. So let's get started. Since this week we're going to be talking about competition, mainly that competition in the workplace, it's important to refer back to something that we discussed in week number 1 and kind of incorporate that into our commitment for the 6 weeks of this class, and then also your commitment, going forward, of placing yourself, your journey and attainment of self-reliance for yourself and your family, and pair that with the idea of owning your job. And in week 1, we talked about taking ownership of your job, being the best at your job. And although it may seem uncomfortable to think about, but if you don't own your job, then someone else may very well take it. And so we want to remain competitive. Some of the ways that we do that in the workplace are, we've already discussed in this 6-week class, which is we know our value. We don't stop learning, and then we collaborate with others. And that way our value and our really our workplace value, right, is never in question. And of course, saying that, it reminds me of something that we often see, which is, your net worth is not the same as your self-worth. Well, your workplace value is not the same as your value as a human, right? We know, all of us know that we have great worth, especially our souls are a great worth, not only to God, but they should be a great worth to one another. But when it comes to our workplace value and what we can do in our jobs and in the sphere of influence professionally, then we have to be realistic. Now, we know that this is something we discussed ever since Education for Better Work. Employers and clients hire people who provide value. That also includes employers and clients retain people who provide value, and then they promote people who provide value, right? And the level of value that you can provide will largely determine your compensation. And this week, we're going to be really focusing on that compensation component. And we're going to go back and look at the 3 levels of workplace value, which we discussed, at the very beginning. Actually, it's a module that I placed before Education for Better Work, kind of as a standard work, if you will, something to consider all throughout the program, the self-reliance program that I put together. And so the first level of workplace value is the level of implementation. Now, these are the doers, right? They are the bottom rung, generally, in any organization. Oftentimes, they are a permanent workforce. If we remember back to Charles Handy's Shamrock organization that we discussed in week number 2, and week number 3, that Shamrock organization includes a permanent workforce. Now, unfortunately, that permanent workforce of implementers, while they do receive things like the benefits, whether that be, healthcare or, other kind of benefits of being a full-time employee, they generally are the lowest paid level of workplace value, in that they are largely interchangeable, right? They can always bring someone in who knows the same thing or has done the same thing, and they can get them up to speed. Okay. These on the screen are some of the, attributes of this level of implementation. Okay. When it comes to competition, competition is imposed upon this level of workplace value, these implementers, and it's imposed upon them to motivate them and measure performance. And so competition actually doesn't do very much for them unless they stay competitive and compete on a different playing field, right? If they play on the field of competition that is set for them by their employer, by their managers, then oftentimes they receive that short-term recognition, but they actually don't achieve very much. Now, occasionally, promotion to the second level of unification, that has the person may feel that they have won the competition among their peers, right? They were chosen to be promoted. There generally is only one manager of a department, right? If an implementer is promoted to a unifier and has this greater impact, they presumably have more value. Again, they've won the competition, but generally this is short-lived because of the high expectations now placed upon them and no more real support given to them. Again, the level of unification and those within that level of workplace value generally are still playing someone else's game. Okay. Now we ascend to the third level, the highest level of workplace value, which is communication. Now, these communicators, this level of workplace value remains competitive for themselves. As you can see, they are valued in groups and organizations. They're empathetic and relatable, and they're remembered for their accomplishments. And some of the ways that they do this is they exude leadership qualities. And I'd invite you to look back on the training module of 3 levels of workplace value. You can find it on my YouTube channel. You can also find it in other references throughout Education for Better Work, which is the previous class. But those 3 those 3 laws of leadership that I present as a way to become a communicator and reach that level, those are so important for developing the qualities of a communicator. But today, in the scope of staying competitive, we're going to actually discuss the 3 principles of competition. Now, these are the actual, I think, workplace principles or workplace, rather than laws of leadership strictly, they're kind of these principles that the communicator abides by as they do their work. And remember, the communicator in this level of workplace value, they're not necessarily the manager. They can be among the implementation, rung of workplace value, but they stand out, right? And they are competitive. They remain. It's so important. This last bullet point: they're remembered for their accomplishments, and that way, no one ever passes them up for an opportunity to do more. Okay, they are never unnoticed in that team or in that organization. So, the first principle of competition is passion. And being passionate at work is a driving force that significantly enhances one's competitiveness, and paves a path to success in any industry, in any job. Passion fuels an individual's commitment to their tasks, instilling a relentless dedication to excellence. You can see how this person being driven can remain competitive. They are most likely becoming a subject matter expert of their field, of their craft, right? Now, this passion provides the intrinsic motivation needed to continuously strive for improvement and innovation. And this leads to a distinctive edge in a competitive workplace and landscape that we work and live in today. These passionate individuals are more likely to take initiative, seize opportunities, and go above and beyond their role. And this sets them apart from their peers. Moreover, passion fosters resilience in the face of challenges. You'll remember that is a crucial component to building a portfolio career that we discussed earlier in this class. The idea that you are no longer, assuming a role that's given to you, but you are choosing a role which will build into your overall lifetime value and lifetime opportunity professionally. Okay. Ultimately, being passionate at work not only heightens one's competitive prowess, but it also cultivates a fulfilling journey toward achieving lasting success. Again, really flipping the script on someone who focuses and builds their career largely for their employers, and they build their career for themselves. Okay. The second principle of competition in the workplace is team spirit. And this may at first seem counterintuitive because you may mistake a competitive individual as someone who works alone or doesn't let anyone else on the team surpass them. But all being competitive really means is that your level of value remains greater than anyone else in your sphere of influence. It means you're the obvious person to call when something needs to get done. And by fostering team spirit in your organization, in your immediate team, you will emerge as the front runner. Now, if you don't end up leading the team, you will at least be recognized as an advisor, a valued member of that team who wants the team to win. And I do believe that you'll be the first one, in that promotion track. Okay. The third and final principle of competition is business acumen. Now, business acumen is a term which basically means that you have the understanding, a deeper understanding of how the business works. It's a crucial asset that empowers individuals to remain competitive and attain success. It encompasses that deep understanding of, the market in which the business is doing business in. So this includes the market dynamics, financial principles, and strategic decision making. Almost knowing what's going on behind the scene, right? And that way you can make daily decisions which are not based solely on your very limited scope of work. We see this in that implementation role and level of value is that they're just doing a job, right? And they don't always see the bigger picture. This limits their opportunities, and it certainly limits them in the view of their management and upper management. Oftentimes when someone gets it, right, they are someone reaches down, they pull them up into that unification level of workplace value because, hey, this person really understands what we do here. And if they understand it, they can get other people to get behind it, right? But those who truly understand the business and can see these strategic elements of the business, they are valued at such a degree that they begin to be like I mentioned before, an advisor. Imagine advising an executive, right? Imagine being that person on the team that is rubbing shoulders with people higher up in the organization, right? Perhaps you don't have the title, but if you follow these kind of practices, it won't be long before you are given an opportunity to promote. Now, by cultivating business acumen in oneself, an individual positions themselves as a strategic thinker who can navigate complexities, seize growth prospects, and contribute significantly to their company's sustained success. So you can see how this is a crowning principle of competition. All right. Now, I want to remind everyone of the past 2 weeks of homework. Now, the past 2 weeks, homework assignment has been something that I hope that you've had the chance to get started on. If you're still working on it, that's okay. As we get near to the end of this class, although we work on a 6-week schedule, it doesn't mean that your personal progress can't go to 7 or 8 or 9 weeks. But if you are struggling with any of the assignments and getting them done, please reach out to me, and that way I can be of service to you. I can give you some clarity. Again, these assignments can improve. Absolutely. The clarity can improve. And the way that I make sure that future classes benefit the most is when I receive that feedback from you. But staying competitive really first resides in your skills. And so last week's homework, that high return on investment skill audit, is so important for you to complete. And then it really builds into this week's homework assignment, which is a salary negotiation activity using the high return on investment or high value skills that you've identified for yourself and have kind of committed to developing. Okay. And then there is another tactical activity within this homework assignment this week. This homework assignment is somewhat lengthy, but I believe that it can be done in 1 week's time. And that way we can move into our final week next week. That tactical activity may seem intimidating at first, but I do believe that it is something that you can get started on, and it really just takes some courage to get started on it. These tactical activities are generally something that you take and you immediately do, right? I really wanted to put that into this class curriculum, something that it's not just conceptual learning, but it's the actual doing. You'll remember that from Education for Better Work, those two options for actually learning a skill, which one being just learning it, like watching a presentation like this, but then also actually doing it. The tactical activities are the doing part of these homework assignments. So with all that being said, that completes our 5th week of Finding a Better Job. As always, reminding you of your first priority, as mentioned at the beginning of this class, which is becoming self-reliant and caring for yourself and your family. Because as we've discussed, and I think, it's maybe not it's not what we want necessarily. It's not what we hope for in a company or an organization that we work for, but these organizations, they are businesses. They make decisions based on profit. And, you have to make your decisions based on your self-interests. And that includes your future and your family's prosperity. Okay. That concludes this week.